And what you were listening to right there was just some of the conversation that's happening live over at the United Nations. And they are talking about cyber security threats. And those do include from Iran and China. And as you heard there, China speaking to the United Nations. Do want to talk about some of the other topics that we are covering right now. New video released by the Houthi rebels shows the attack on a ship that eventually sank. You can see the explosion there in just a second as this becomes the second ship to sink during the terror group's campaign in the Red Sea. Now, the attack comes despite the months-long U.S.-led campaign in the region that's seen the Navy face its most intense maritime fighting since back in World War II, with nearly daily attacks that target commercial vessels and warships. I do want to talk about this and the latest developments out of the Middle East here. So let's bring in Glenn Ignazio, a retired Air Force Special Operations Commander, to talk more about all of this. Glenn, thank you so much for taking the time to be here with us today.
Absolutely. Great to be back with you, Josh. Thanks.
All right, so first off, I do want to talk about this latest attack by the Houthis. As we saw in that video that was just released, you see the big explosion, and then we know after that the ship actually sank. So does it appear that these attacks by the Houthis in the Red Sea and the surrounding area are intensifying?
Definitely a yes. And the reason for it actually is not only these daily attacks. As you mentioned, there's more naval activity than or at least since World War II, this has been one of the most. And what they did was they used larger ships that were actually remote controlled, so drones, and they attacked both the left and right side, or port and starboard, plus the stern or the back of the ship. As you can see in the video, the explosion was rather significant to bring the ship actually down. So yes, they have significantly impacted or increased, any impact on maritime trade. And we actually see that with Hezbollah as well. So Iran seems to be picking up their support and rhetoric and also supporting these groups like the Houthis and so forth to attack more of the maritime trade. That impacts everybody globally, not just that particular area of the world.
And I do want to talk about some of the other topics right now, from Gaza to the situation with Hezbollah over in Lebanon. So let's start talking about Lebanon. Israel approving its operational plans for an offensive in Lebanon. What does that really mean overall? And does this bring Israel and Hezbollah even closer to an all-out, full-scale war?
Yes, the situation really with Hezbollah is increasing. And what we saw were attacks from Hezbollah into Israel the day after Hamas attacked Israel as well. So yes, you're seeing an escalation here, and it is very troubling. The reason for it is if you look at Hezbollah's component within Lebanon, you're talking about over 150,000 militants. That is a significant force, bigger than Hamas. In addition, Hezbollah has stated, hey, we're going to attack Israel. If anything kicks off, we're going to attack Israel. And that conflict would be rather significant with extensive damage in Israel. Yet I believe Israel has enough firepower to be able to defend themselves. So when they said, Israel said, hey, we have war plans. Yes, those war plans exist. They have existed for some time. And I believe that they've updated it based on where Hezbollah has been operating within Lebanon. So it's increasing rhetoric, and it's basically Israel saying, hey, we are going to defend ourselves. And a conflict with Hezbollah would be quite different and much more significant, especially impacting Israel in itself, than the situation happening in Gaza. So yes, this is an increase, and it's something to be concerned about.
And I do want to ask you a little bit more about the comments by Hezbollah's leader, because he said just yesterday, came out and did say that no place in Israel will be safe from rockets, also threatened Cyprus there in the same comments. So what do you make of all of that? Is it just yet another threat?
It's a threat that's got some teeth to it. So, we've been seeing, as we mentioned, multiple attacks from Hezbollah, rocket attacks and so forth. So that's been increasing. And again, they do have a capability. One of the other things he said in that particular speech was, we also have new weapons to bring to bear. Now, that's really something to pay attention on, because most of the training, weapons, and supplies, and especially the monetary, has come from Iran. So that is very concerning. Now, the other thing they said is anybody that is to assist Israel in any type of conflict, where Cyprus has been involved in exercises and operations, Cyprus makes the target. However, the leader of Cyprus said, hey, we're not facilitating actual conflict or operations directly against Hezbollah. So Cyprus is trying to protect themselves, as they should. But yes, Hezbollah has increased this. And what happens is with the drones and the weapon systems that Hezbollah has, as we were alluding to earlier, is that they can reach, they can actually identify and have better intelligence and capabilities to impact Israel significantly. So you would see impacts to the grid, the electrical grid, the water supply, and direct attacks against the people of Israel much more significant. So this would be a very dangerous operation if that was to ever kick off.
What is the U.S. doing right now to prevent that all-out war? We know that we've seen an envoy who did go over to Israel and then also to Lebanon. What else is being done overall to make sure that this doesn't escalate even further?
Well, the carrier groups were moved into that area when things kicked off between Israel and Hamas within Gaza. And the whole idea where those carrier groups would go there to hold Hezbollah and others at bay. So it was definitely a deterrence factor. That's sort of becoming a problem because, you know, regardless of how you look at it politically, there's a lot of statements from the U.S. and the Biden administration of saying, hey, you know, we're not really supporting Israel in the best way, and that is to increase the voting in the United States. So politics are impacting real-time war operations. We saw a hold on certain weapons deliveries in the past, and while that was focused on Gaza, people are sort of looking at tactically. They realize that Israel is threatened by Hezbollah, and they're basically surrounded. So any kind of pause or hold of anything we support Israel on from the United States perspective impacts Israel's defense, not just what happened in Gaza. So this is something that Netanyahu has been very vocal about in the last couple of days of making sure that the United States protects and backs Israel in all ways and all facets. So that's the best way I could say is we originally deterred it, but it's to support Israel to be able to defend itself in case an operation like this would kick off.
Do you believe, just based on your experience and what you've seen, that Israel would be able to handle two full all-out wars, one between Hamas and one with Hezbollah?
That's definitely a complex question, and I'll try to give the best answer we can. Is that you see the operations in Hamas that has impacted the stores of Israel. I mean, this is why the United States relationship and relationship with others is critical to make sure Israel has the weapons and platforms necessary to defend itself. So you saw the ground troops and the air and also the armor going into Gaza and dealing with Hamas. Hezbollah at the same time would have something more intense. So the formidable defense and air force specifically in Israel would be taking out these sites that may launch against Israel. But it would be very difficult in the defense side because Hezbollah's rocket attacks could overwhelm some of the defensive systems. And this is where things would be very tough. I believe Israel can protect itself and be very formidable as far as attacking Hezbollah, but the damage would be much more extensive. And we're talking about an intense war footing that would occur versus what you saw in Gaza. It would be very dangerous and it would be very damaging. And unfortunately, significant collateral damage would be tied to that as well.
And speaking about what's going on over in Gaza, the IDF saying that the Rafah operation should be over in a matter of a couple weeks is what was said days ago. Do we know what happens next, what the next step is in all of this?
Yeah, the Rafah operation, has been looked at for ages or I would say ages, but months as far as, hey, Israel, don't go in there. And they really had to. We saw the release of hostages based on intelligence and the IDF actually taking operations to get those hostages released and back physically. They also cut off the Philadelphia corridor, which was the border with Egypt, and they found significant tunnels and supplies going to Hamas. So that's a good thing. What would happen as we get this, or I would say as Israel closes down the operation in Gaza from a military standpoint, what is the rebuilding? And this is the biggest question we really haven't had answers, is what is the rebuilding of Gaza? Who's going to manage that? Who's going to lead that? Who's going to maintain the security within Gaza? That's the biggest question that would have to be focused on, and we haven't really seen any kind of plans other than warnings of we don't want Israel running Gaza. So the rebuilding, the management, and the leadership in Gaza is going to be the challenge going forward.
My last question for you here, because I have to ask about it. We learned just about, I would say, 24 hours ago that there had been this pact that was agreed upon, signed, whatever you want to call it, between Russia and North Korea, the leaders there who actually met in North Korea for a two-day summit. Does that possibly have any sort of impact on the situation in Gaza, knowing that that pact does exist between Russia and North Korea?
Really, it does impact everywhere. It impacts Ukraine, impacts Gaza, and here's the reason why: is that Putin is sort of building almost what we have in NATO. So the relationship with North Korea and the signature of this document is basically saying, hey, if you attack Russia, North Korea is going to back up. If North Korea is attacked, Russia is going to back them up. So same as our NATO charter saying, if one's attacked, all is attacked and the defensives come in. So he's almost creating that counter West approach. And he's doing that with mainly communist countries like North Korea. He's increasing and is visited Vietnam right now. And also China is in that sort of coalition. And of course, Iran. So Iran focuses on supplies for Ukraine, but also focuses on maintaining operations with Hezbollah, Hamas. And so it affects that area. It affects Ukraine, where North Korea is supplying those particular weapons. And it impacts North Korea and the Southeast Asia peninsula as far as what is going to be provided to Korea. Mainly rocket technology is what Russia has. That's what North Korea wants. So it does destabilize and creates a formidable adversary against Western powers.
All right, Glenn, thank you so much for taking the time to join us and break down all the latest developments. There are so many of them, so we appreciate you kind of taking those rapid fire questions. Anything else you want to add about any of this before I let you go?
Honestly, I think we captured it very well. And it was interesting about what China was saying with the briefing and the posting of what the speech was in UN a few minutes ago, is the cyber warfare. That is very significant in the world. And we need to make sure that actually China and other adversaries follow that. We saw a Russia state-sponsored attack against our medical system and some companies that were shut down and, in fact, have closed because of that. So the cyber warfare is another component that impacts the entire globe. So it's something to definitely watch going forward. And I appreciate your time today as well.
Of course. All right, thanks. Have a good rest of your day.
You too. Take care, Josh.